I mean, you look at the success from Dark Side of the Ring and how much everybody loved that and was like clamoring for new episodes, couldn't wait for them to drop, and then like all of the buzz of everyone talking about shit online and blah, 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 to now it's morphed into this new season having Tales from the Territories. So how did this come up? Like, what was the concept behind putting this show together and pairing up with $7, pairing up with The Rock? What happened with all that?
Well, it was super organic. It was awesome. I mean, I remember, I think it was around the time of Dark Side Season 1 when that came out in 2019 or whatever it was. I just remember looking at my phone and seeing that, Twitter mentioned The Rock has mentioned you on Twitter. And I was like, oh my God. So I looked at it, and then he was, obviously, putting the show over, putting Dark Side of the Ring over on Twitter, which was just mind blowing, especially for someone like me as a, growing up as an Attitude Era fan, so that was wild. And then it was like shortly thereafter, we were able to get a meeting with $7. They were interested in wanting to talk to us about projects, future ideas. And so the roots of the show actually go all the way back to right after season 1 in 2019 with Territories, when we were batting around ideas. And the short version of the story is that, Brian Gewirtz, who works with The Rock at $7, he was a
also
former head writer.
Also a former guest on this show. Shout out to Brian.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah, that's right. Brian's got an awesome new book out that's amazing.
It is a great
it's
book.
Incredible. Yeah, of course. So Brian, we sort of hit it off with him, and we had this mutual interest of wanting to do something about like territory era wrestling, because that's like a huge major fixation of Jason and I. Like we love that era. We love, we're huge like, world class fans, Jim Crockett Promotions, all that stuff. So we wanted to do something about that. And then coincidentally, we were getting season 2 of Dark Side going, and that's when we were working on the Chris Benoit episode of that show, when we met Chavo Guerrero Jr., who actually helped us in like majorly helped us in like a producerial capacity with that episode, getting a lot of the folks in that show on board. And Chavo also was, doing stuff on Glow, and then he eventually would work on Young Rock. So he was getting involved in production.
Booked
and he
and
also,
busy, baby.
Yeah, of course. And he also had a concept too about wanting to work and do a doc in the territory realm. And so it was all just kind of this perfect storm of all of us coming together and saying, well, let's just do something together. And then that was, sort of developed and pitched as Tales from the Territories. And then lo and behold, we pitched it to a bunch of networks, but Vice came in and wanted to do it. And so we did it. And then we went right into production on it after season 3 last year. We went like there was no gap in between and started working on it.
Do you guys feel like you're burning the candle on both ends right now? You guys have been so busy for so long.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired.
Yeah,
a little bit. We're lucky though. Like we've been over like the past couple of years been able to like kind of like amass like a team, and so we have like a great team along with us too. So
oh my God.
And it's crazy too when you think about being as busy as you guys have during a time when a lot of people weren't busy at all, and you guys just kind of kept that train moving forward and keeping productions going and all that. Like, hats off to you guys for being able to pull all that off. That couldn't have been easy.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, even in when we were doing season 3, and I'm sure we talked about it last time, was that the world shut down, nobody was traveling, but I think the most travel I ever did was during that period, and we drove it and we drove it all in an RV, which was absolutely insane during 2020 for season 3. So, but we're just super fortunate to have been able to keep it going, to have a great team, and and for all this to keep coming together despite all of the challenges and hurdles with the last couple of years.
So how different was it coming into Territories and working with another production company and working with somebody like The Rock, the biggest name when it comes to professional wrestling, the biggest name when it comes to entertainment in general? Now all of a sudden you guys have this new stamp on your product, which people have already been loving, and now it's like this new thing. How has that been?
Man, it's been pretty awesome. Like, in terms of like, what someone like working with someone like The Rock and what that brings to a project.
Do you call him The Rock or do you call him Dwayne now? Do you call him DJ? What do you call him?
I actively try not to call him DJ.
Okay.
It's like, people saying, Marty for Marty Scorsese and stuff.
Right.
Like, I don't know if I know him that well yet to be throwing DJ around, but But working with Dwayne Rock, on the show has been awesome because I think what that brings to the production, is obviously a huge stamp of authenticity.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest parts about Dark Side of the Ring is sometimes calling up wrestlers and getting them on the show. Wrestlers, I think, for a lot of different reasons and have great reason to be a little suspect of guys like us, of course, that want to make docs about their lives or sometimes the darkest periods of their lives, and things like that. But working with, working with Dwayne on the show has been awesome because obviously he has all the relationships in the world in this business. And it's given us the opportunity to work with a lot of wrestlers that we've never had the chance to work with on Dark Side, like Jerry Lawler, Michael Hayes from the WWE, who's over there.
What was your favorite Michael Hayes outfit that he showed up in?
Oh my God. It's amazing. I love his style. I think
the
it's
color
incredible.
of the rainbow. I would love to just you guys need to do an episode on that. Go to Michael Hayes' house and just look at his closet, to look at the fanny pack matched with the vest to the pants to the shoes. It's crazy.
It's amazing. He has such an incredible style. It's total like comic book villain style or whatever.
Yeah.
I love it. And he showed up, I think it was like in I want to say like a kind of cream to like eggshell, kind of color, and it was all coordinated and perfect and looked amazing on camera.
I respect it. I love it.
Yeah.
I really always looked forward to a good Michael Hayes outfit. The guy does not miss.
No, not at all.
Never does.
No.
Never.
No. So.
Who else did you guys get to work with that was new for you guys?
Well, I think there's a ton. I mean, we'd never worked with Ted DiBiase before. There was also some folks that we'd worked with on Dark Side that we hadn't had back in the show in a long time. Like we got Bret the Hitman Hart back. Kevin Sullivan was one that we had never worked with before on the show. And when you're talking about like sort of casting, if you will, for this show or getting wrestlers together for it.
And it's like is each episode the roundtables?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a different format than Dark Side of the Ring. Where Dark Side of the Ring, it's most largely like it's one subject, either about like one event. But we wanted to kind of try to recreate that feeling of being around like a table with wrestlers when they're telling their stories and kind of bouncing back and forth like off each other. So it's like it's kind of we bring them all to a table. They all come to us and they sit down. We try to create like a good environment for them to, have fun telling their stories. And then we do the reenactments, kind of similar to like what we do with Dark Side of the Ring. But each episode is like 5 to 6 like different stories within the territory.
Yeah, we sort of say that it's kind of almost like a Tales from the Crypt format, where it's like it's kind of an anthology of different stories. So it's not like a total history of the territory. It's literally you're a fly on the wall for like these 4 to 5 wrestlers coming together for the first time. Some who haven't been in the same room in 35 years,
right.
When they were working together back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's a cool vibe. And I actually remember several years ago, I think it was during maybe StarCast, maybe that same StarCast we were talking about earlier, like walking into a bar, and I think it was Road Warrior Animal, Scott Norton, Eric Bischoff, and Sonny Ono, and a bunch of these guys. And they were all around a table, few beers in, and they were just telling these stories that were just jaw-dropping. Everyone. Like one guy told a story, then the next guy, and they just kind of went down the line passing around stories, and one story turned into 20 different ones. Mm-hmm. And so then I remember even Eric Bischoff at the time leaned over and it was like, if this could be recreated for television, and it's like, I know, I've been thinking the same thing. And so that was what the challenge I think with this was just like, can we recreate this naturalistic old time wrestlers hanging out and telling their best stories?
How do you get them to get to that level of comfortability together? Because I know what you mean. I've been there during those times when you're all hanging out, whether you're in a car between towns or it's the hotel lobby afterwards. Like I've been around those conversations, and a lot of it is stuff that probably can't air on television, or stuff that maybe they don't ever want to talk about publicly in that sense. So a way to like capture those stories and still be really true to what those are, while letting the guys like really let loose to to really telling that tale.
Well, it's an interesting dynamic. At first, I thought, going back to my experience, at the bar or whatever, I thought booze might have been the answer to that.
You got a small window with that before it turns into a shit show and people are going through tables. Yeah.
Exactly. So we didn't do that, and a lot of these guys are sharper in the morning anyway, and so we sort of figured that. And I was actually surprised, at how natural it was just off like right away, because I was worried because it's not like Dark Side where we go to your home and we interview you in your comfortable space. We're actually bringing you to a studio and there's lights and there's a goddamn camera guy on a freaking track coming around the table and stuff like that. And so how is that going to take people out of the moment? But I was actually pretty surprised that it wound up feeling pretty natural, right away. But I think that there is this kind of, there is some... all wrestlers have a competitive nature, in terms of wanting to kind of one-up each other with a story, or, they maybe will embellish or over-exaggerate. And so that's one thing I think viewers are going to find when they see the show is like, these are the lore. These are the legends, like legendary stories of the road that have taken on a new life as each decade rolls by, and so I think that's part of the fun of the show a little bit. It's not trying to be, journalistically accurate in a lot of ways, because there's no way that these stories could be, right? But that's what's great about them. They're in and around
the mark. But that is the funny part, though, because when you are sitting around in that bar and you're hearing these stories, you're like, shut up. There's no way that happened. But then you look at the cast of characters that they're talking about, and you look back to the 80s that like life was different. You're like, shit, did that happen? Like, oh my God, it's nuts.
There's a pretty legendary story that's in our AWA episode that I think a lot of fans are looking forward to. I've already been seeing some chatter about it. But basically, it's a legendary story involving two wrestlers, Ken Patera and Masa Saito. And one night they were drinking, until past midnight. And they were getting super hungry, and so they're asking the bartender, was there a restaurant around here that's open? And the guy says, oh, there's the goddamn McDonald's down the road. So Ken Patera goes out to the McDonald's, but it's closed, even though inside the McDonald's, they have a mound full of cheeseburgers that is, that he can see through the window. But they're filming a commercial. They're not supposed to sell them after hours, yada, yada, yada. And then somehow a giant freaking boulder goes through the window of the McDonald's, right? Which is the stuff of legend. But then that transitions to Ken Patera coming back to his hotel room, and then the police start knocking on the door. Mace is flying, fists are flying, and then it winds up with Ken Patera and Masa Saito, beating up 20 cops, And I'm sure that number has grown a lot over the years, but it's a crazy story, and the way in which Ken Patera tells it, even though it's a crazy story, it's hard not to smile and laugh at.